Every time a serial killer's trophy room put him in prison. Harvey Glattman. Harvey Glattman moved to Los Angeles in 1957. He started calling modeling agencies and pretending he was a professional photographer for pulp magazines. He had served prison time at Sing Sing for assaulting women in his early 20s. He did not mention that part. Judith Dull was 19 and trying to become a model. She answered his call in August 1957. Glattman brought her to his apartment and tied her up and photographed her on the couch. He raped her on the couch. And then he drove her into the desert hours later and strangled her with rope. 7 months later, in March 1958, he answered a Lonely Hearts ad in the newspaper. He used the name George Williams. Shirley Ann Bridgeford was 24 and divorced. She was looking for a date to a dance club. Glattman drove her to the desert instead. He tied her up and photographed her. Then he raped her and strangled her. 4 months later, he found his third victim through a modeling agency. Ruth Mercado was 24. She answered the door too sick for the shoot, and Glattman left, but he came back hours later. He broke in and raped her at gunpoint all night. In the morning, he forced her into his car. He drove her to the desert and tied her up and photographed her. Then he killed her. On October 27, 1958, Glattman picked up a fourth target. Lorraine Vigil was 28 and a first-time model. She noticed he was driving away from the studio at high speed and toward Orange County. He pulled over and pointed a .32 caliber pistol at her. Vigil grabbed the barrel and refused to let go. A California Highway Patrol officer was driving past and saw them struggling on the side of the road. He arrested Glattman on the spot. Glattman confessed to all 3 murders within hours. He led police to a small toolbox in his apartment. Inside were 22 photographs of Dull and Bridgeford and Mercado. The toolbox also held the women's identification cards and pieces of their underwear and the rope he used to bind them. Glattman pleaded guilty. He waived his right to a jury. He asked the judge for the death penalty. Judge John Hoeker imposed it, and Glattman told the San Quentin warden not to save his life. He died in the gas chamber on September 18, 1959. He never appealed. Jerry Brudos. Jerry Brudos got the nickname Shoe Fetish Slayer because of his obsession with women's high heels. He was a married electronics technician in Salem, Oregon. He had a wife and 2 kids. He had a workshop in the garage with a padlock on the door. His wife Darcy was not allowed in. On January 26, 1968, Linda Slauson knocked on his door. She was 19 and selling encyclopedias. Brudos lured her into the basement and knocked her out with a 2x4 and strangled her. He cut off her left foot with a hacksaw. He put it in his basement freezer. He used the foot to model the dozens of women's shoes he had stolen over the years. Then he dumped her body in the Willamette River. In November, he killed Jan Whitney. She was 23 and a college student. Her car broke down on Interstate 5, and Brudos stopped to help. He took her back to his garage and strangled her. He cut off one of her breasts. He preserved it with epoxy resin and used it as a paperweight. In March 1969, he abducted Karen Sprinker from a parking garage at gunpoint. He was wearing women's clothes as a disguise. She was 18. He took her home and killed her in his garage, workshop. He dressed her body in lingerie and photographed her. A month later, he picked up Linda Saleh at a Salem shopping mall. She was 22. He killed her too. Both bodies were tied to car parts and dumped in the Long Tom River. A fisherman found Saleh on May 10, 1969. Police divers recovered Sprinker 2 days later. Detectives went to Oregon State University and started interviewing students. Several women said a man had been calling them and saying he was a Vietnam veteran looking for a date. One student described his car. Police picked up Brudos on May 30th. Darcy had to call him on the intercom for permission to access the freezer. Detectives unlocked the workshop. They found the photographs and the rope and the stolen lingerie. They found the breast paperweights. They found the freezer foot. Brudos pleaded guilty to 3 of the 4 murders 3 days before trial. The 4th victim, Linda Slauson, was never charged because her body was never recovered. He got 3 consecutive life sentences. He died at Oregon State Penitentiary in 2006. He had been there 37 years. That was the longest stretch of any inmate in Oregon history. Joel Rifkin. Joel Rifkin killed 17 women between 1989 and 1993. He was an unemployed landscaper. He was 34 years old. He lived with his mother and sister in East Meadow on Long Island. His targets were sex workers from Manhattan and Queens and Brooklyn. They were drug-dependent women whose disappearances drew almost no police attention. Rifkin picked them up off the street. He took them back to his mother's house when she was out. He strangled them in his bedroom. He dismembered some of them in the garage sink while his mother slept upstairs. His first kill was Heidi Balch in February 1989. She was 26. He removed her teeth and fingertips so she could not be identified. He put her head in a paint can and dumped it on a New Jersey golf course. Her remains were not identified until 2013. 16 more women followed over 4 years. Rifkin used 55-gallon oil drums weighted with cinder blocks. He dropped bodies in Coney Island Creek. He dropped them in the East River. He dropped them in the Hudson. And then he went to his niece's birthday parties hours later. His final victim was Tiffany Bresciani in late June 1993. She was 22. He kept her body wrapped in a tarp in the garage for 3 days because of the summer heat. On June 28, 1993, at 3:15 in the morning, 2 state troopers were patrolling the Southern State Parkway. They noticed his pickup truck was missing a rear license plate. They tried to flag him down. He led them on a 20-minute slow-speed chase down Long Island. He crashed into a utility pole. The body of Tiffany Bresciani was wrapped in a tarp in the truck bed. Rifkin confessed during a 6-hour interrogation. The lieutenant asked if Bresciani was his only victim. Rifkin leaned back. He asked the lieutenant what difference it made. 1 or 100 made no difference to him. He admitted to 17 murders. Police searched his mother's house in East Meadow. They recovered 228 items. 75 pieces of women's jewelry were stored in his upstairs bedroom. Driver's licenses and library cards and credit cards belonging to at least 10 different women were cataloged in his drawers. The bedroom also held photographs of unidentified women and a book about the Green River Killer. Rifkin got 203 years. He told a CBS reporter years later that he never would have stopped if not for that missing license plate screw. Rodney Alcala. Rodney Alcala may be the most prolific serial killer in American history who never knew his exact body count. He was convicted of 7 murders. He is suspected of dozens more across multiple states. In 1978, in the middle of his killing spree, Alcala won an episode of The Dating Game on national television. He had already killed at least 5 women by then. The Bachelorette who picked him called the show the next day to cancel the date. Something about him made her uncomfortable. His method was photography. He approached women and girls at beaches and parks. He told them he was a freelance photographer working on a contest. He had real film school training under Roman Polanski at NYU. The credentials made him convincing. In June 1979, he abducted Robin Samsoe in Huntington Beach. She was 12 and riding a friend's bicycle to ballet class. Her body was found nearly 2 weeks later in the San Gabriel Mountains. A witness recognized Alcala from a sketch, and police identified him through his criminal record. Alcala was arrested on July 24, 1979. Detectives searched his California home. They found a receipt for a Seattle storage locker. They booked it into evidence. Days later, Alcala's sister visited him at the Orange County Jail. The visit was recorded. Alcala asked her quietly to drive to Seattle and clear out the storage locker, but police already had the receipt, and they were already on their way to Seattle. They reached the locker before the sister did. They cut the lock and went inside. There were over 1,000 photographs. They showed women and girls and boys. Some were clothed and some were nude, and some looked unconscious. There was also a stash of jewelry. Among them was a pair of gold ball earrings. They matched the ones Robin Samsoe was wearing the day she disappeared. The earrings became the central evidence at trial. Alcala was convicted in 1980 and sentenced to death. The conviction was overturned. He was tried again in 1986 and sentenced to death again. That conviction was also overturned in 2001. In 2010, he was tried a 3rd time. He represented himself. He played clips of his Dating Game appearance during cross-examination. He argued he had worn similar earrings on the show. The jury was not convinced. Alcala was convicted of 5 murders in California. He later pleaded guilty to 2 more in New York. After his arrest, the LAPD released 180 of the storage locker photographs publicly. 53 of the women were identified. Several remain missing to this day. Alcala died on death row in 2021. He never told anyone how many people he killed. Bruce McArthur. Bruce McArthur killed 8 men in Toronto between 2010 and 2017. He was a self-employed landscaper, and he was 66. He met his victims through dating apps. Toronto police launched the largest investigation in department history in June 2017. The disappearances dated back to 2010. Police had ignored the pattern for years. McArthur lured his victims home. He drugged them. He strangled them with a metal bar wrapped in rope. He dismembered the bodies in his bathtub. Then he buried the dismembered remains in large planter boxes at a client's house on Mallory Crescent. He killed Skandaraj Navaratnam in 2010. He killed Abdulbasir Faizi the same year. He killed Majid Kayhan in 2012. He killed Soresh Mahmoodi in 2015. He killed Karushna Kanagaratnam later that year. He killed Dean Lisowick between 2016 and 2017. He killed Selim Eason in April 2017, and his last victim was Andrew Kinsman in June. Police identified McArthur after surveillance video showed Kinsman getting into a red Dodge Caravan. They linked the van to him. They found Kinsman's blood and semen inside. Officers arrested McArthur on January 18, 2018. They entered his apartment. They found a man chained to his bed. The man was alive. He survived. Detectives searched MacArthur's electronics. They found 8 folders on his hard drive. Each folder was labeled with the name of one murder victim. Each folder contained photos of the man alive, and then strangled, and then posed afterward. 2 of the dead victims had been arranged in fur coats. 2 had unlit cigars placed in their mouths. Some images showed the metal bar still wrapped around the victim's neck. A 9th folder was already created on the hard drive. It was labeled with the name of the man chained to the bed at the moment of arrest. Police also recovered the victim's jewelry. They recovered a duffel bag containing duct tape and surgical gloves and rope and zip ties and syringes. MacArthur had shaved facial hair from some of the victims. He kept it. Excavation of the planter boxes at Mallory Crescent recovered the dismembered remains of all 8 men. MacArthur pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder on January 29, 2019. He got life with no parole for 25 years. The folders were what got him. Russell Williams. Russell Williams was a colonel in the Royal Canadian Air Force. He had flown Queen Elizabeth II and Prime Minister Jean Chrétien and other heads of state on VIP transport aircraft. In July 2009, he was given command of CFB Trenton. That was the largest military airbase in Canada, with 3,000 personnel. 3 years earlier, Williams had started breaking into homes near his cottage in Tweed, Ontario. He targeted houses where women and girls lived. He photographed his targets' bedrooms. He photographed the underwear drawers. He photographed the stolen lingerie laid out on the bed. He photographed himself wearing the items. He filed every image in nested subfolders on the family computer he shared with his wife. Over 2.5 years, he broke into 82 homes. He stole approximately 1,400 pieces of women's clothing. The collection got so large, he had to burn parts of it in an Ottawa area field. He did this twice. In September 2009, the break-ins finally escalated to sexual assault. Williams blindfolded a young mother and bound her and assaulted her for hours. Her baby slept in the next room. 2 weeks later, he attacked a second woman in Tweed. She lived just doors down from his own cottage. In November 2009, he targeted Marie-France Comeau. She was 38. She was an air attendant under his command at CFB Trenton. He broke into her home. He hid behind her furnace. He ambushed her with a flashlight. He bound her. He suffocated her with duct tape over 4 hours. He recorded the entire attack on video. Before leaving, he bleached her bedsheets and took several pieces of her lingerie. In his official capacity as base commander, Williams sent a personal condolence letter to Comeau's father. In January 2010, he abducted Jessica Lloyd from her home in Tweed. She was 27. He took her to his cottage. He raped her. He killed her. He dumped her body in the woods. Police set up a random highway checkpoint near the Lloyd crime scene on February 4, 2010. Williams drove through the checkpoint. His tire tread matched a print left at Lloyd's home. 3 days later, they brought him in. After 10 hours of interrogation, he confessed and led police to Lloyd's body the next morning. Search of his Ottawa home produced the 1,400 catalogued pieces of lingerie and 2 hard drives full of break-in photographs and the videos of both murders. He had even taken pictures of one victim's driver's license and insurance card. Williams pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. He pleaded guilty to 2 sexual assaults. He pleaded guilty to 82 counts of breaking and entering. He got 2 concurrent life sentences, with no parole for 25 years. The Governor-General of Canada revoked his commission and